You to Rollie Reznicek, who's going to talk about Dr. Franklin Eells.
Well, welcome to all of you. I never dreamt that so many people would come out on such a lovely day just to visit my father's tombstone. But it's delightful to have you here, and I want to tell you about one of the more prominent doctors in the community, my father. My father was the distinguished Dr. Franklin Eells. Not a lot of people know about him, but he came very, very close to making Centerville one of the most renowned companies in the world. So I'm going to have to tell you how that came about. Now, he was born, as you might have noticed in your paper, in Belfast, Maine in 1830. And he became a physician. He attended a medical school in Chicago that was considered to be one of the finest. It was the Bush Medical College of Chicago. And it often states that it was the finest at that time. Well, his first practice was with the Dr. McCoy, and in his practice, the Dr. McCoy had a daughter, which he shortly thereafter married. And in 1855, Dr. Eells came to Centerville with his wife, and they had a child, and that was me. So I'm very pleased that they had a child, and I'm pleased that you're here, and I'm going to tell you why my father was so famous. First of all, he was an outstanding physician, but he was also a botanist, a biologist, and a compounder of medications. He took the role of pharmacist, and he took the role of a manufacturer in his short period of life. Now, when he practiced medicine, he needed something for his patients, and at that time, not as today, there weren't any pharmacies around. Because of his interest in drugs and medicine of ancient times, he started to compound some of his own formulas, and he became well known for it. For some reason, though, he felt he must go on, and he tried moving to St. Louis. Now, St. Louis, he was there for 3 years and practiced at some of the more prominent hospitals in St. Louis, but at that time, due to his wife or family, they decided that that wasn't the place for him, so he moved back to Centerville. Well, the people of Centerville missed his medicines that he was giving out so strongly that they encouraged him to manufacture them himself. So he did start a company manufacturing 16 outstanding formulas. Now, this was a day where patent medicine was coming on strong, and you know, through history, there's always been medication used, and Dr. Eells reflected back on some of the first records made. You know, just for example, there was a booklet found on Papyrus Ebers which had 600 prescriptions in it and 800 drugs, and this was 2,600 years BC, before Christ. So medicine has always been available, but getting it put together in a manner that make it efficient and effective is another thing. And you may have heard of these medicine shows that would go around in the communities, particularly where there was neither doctor nor pharmacist, and they would put on a great show and then sell you their patent medicine. Well, most of those were mostly alcohol, so they made you feel pretty good for a while. But this isn't the kind of medication that Dr. Eells practiced. He actually had some formulas. The only problem with the situation with Dr. Eells was they tend to exaggerate just a little of the value of their medication. Now, his manufacturing started to move very rapidly, and so his son went and became a physician as well, and the son then eventually took over, and the father did not care much. He was more of one that enjoyed the formulating and making them, but he didn't particularly care for the manufacturing, so he turned it over to the son. But I have an unsolicited testimonial. The reason this is important, I'm going to give everyone who wants one a handout of some of the ads that appeared on behalf of the fine medication that my father prepared. So where is that unsolicited testimonial that I had? I have over 500 unsolicited testimonials. Would you please tell them about the medication you're taking?
Feel tired, stupid, drowsy these autumn days? You need a blood purifier, the kind that vitalizes. There's but one such remedy, Dr. Eells Vitalizing Blood Purifier. It is peculiarly efficacious in restoring strength and energy to the weak and debilitated system. A few doses will make you feel like a new man. Need some. It eradicates the impurities from the blood, invigorates the liver and kidneys, and places them in a healthy condition, thus removing the cause of impure blood. If you feel tired, have a dull headache, no appetite, no energy, begin at once to take Dr. Eells Vitalizing Blood Purifier, sold by all druggists.
There you go. Does that meet anything of your needs today? Well, I'm sure that if any of you visited your physician, it's today. Those days, the state of Iowa was starting to grow. As you know, we were only settled in 45 and 46. We became a town, and then whether you call it Centerville or or what was the other name? Chaldea, yeah, we got them all. So anyway, so you can see this was all happening about the same time. And people were enthusiastic, they were aggressive, and they wanted the quick cure. And that's why medicine men became so popular, and patent medicine, the same thing. But also in this time, we have some, the quacks were out there. But Dr. Eells was a good man, and he knew what he was. But he didn't, the good doctor, my father, preferred medicine rather than pharmacy and compounding, so he turned it over to the son. Well, the son wasn't too enthusiastic about it. He was in his early 20s when he came back from med school, so he turned it over and sold it to a couple of other fellows. But it must be noted that at this time, I want to just tell you again that this demand for quick fix, make me feel well, which of course doesn't happen today, for the physicians had to go and get involved with. So as a result, you may be aware that some of the things that happened just in that same period of time, very briefly, were, some of you may have known that there was a guy by the name of John Pemberton in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and he invented Coca-Cola. And this was in 1886. Again, the same time frame that my good doctor came out on. Now, that one worked very, very well, and it was well known to be the brain and nerve tonic. And as you know, the coca was cocaine. And it took a few years before they took that out of there. But I'll tell you, everybody took that and loved it. In 1885, there was another pharmacist down there in Elderton, a drugstore in Waco, Texas, and he invented a drink called Dr. Pepper. So everybody was experimenting with good stuff. Aspirin came along about that time. They knew about aspirin for a long time, but all when you go back in history, everyone either had a medicine man or a shaman, and they knew that the bark of the willow tree had the active ingredient of something that cured them. Well, a German company by the name of Bayer perfected that and stabilized that in 1897. So some of these names start to get familiar perhaps to you. And then there was another one about 1880, a pharmacist by the name of Eli Lilly. Now maybe you've heard that name before. Well, he'd been in the Civil War, and it was atrocious, the kind of medicine that the soldiers were getting. It was not properly prepared. It was more the same type of the bogus medicines that manufacturers were selling to the government and distributing to the troops. So Eli decided that he's going to go and make sure that the troops of the future had adequate medication. And so he learned how to sugarcoat medicine. He learned how to create a gelatin capsule. And now, had my good father taken more interest in the manufacturing and processing of medication, Centerville may be the Eli Lilly company of the future. So here you are. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your patience and attendance.